Have you ever worked at something day after day, showing up before the world wakes, practicing the same motion until your muscles ache, only to wonder if any of it matters? You keep striking the same weakness, reading the same page, running the same route, repeating the same small act that no one applauds. The world loves overnight success. It rarely films the 1,000 mornings that look exactly the same. Meanwhile, doubt speaks with a confident voice. If it hasn't changed yet, maybe it never will. You look around, and others seem to be sprinting ahead while your road circles the same block. It's tempting to trade effort for excuses, to call it fate, to say the door was never meant to open. But what if progress is not a fireworks show, but groundwater, silent, steady, accumulating beneath the surface until, one day, it breaks through? What if the invisible weight of your repetitions is doing a quiet work that only becomes visible at the very end? Today's story is about a man, a hammer, and a stone that refuses to yield until it does. Stay till the end? This story might change how you see persistence, and why the last strike is never just the last strike. It is every strike that came before it, arriving together in a single moment. Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between mountains and rivers, there lived a stonecutter. He was not wealthy, nor did he hold any title. His hands were rough from years of striking rock, his back bent from carrying heavy blocks, and his clothes were worn with dust from the quarry. Every morning, before the sun rose high, he would walk to the same stone, hammer in hand, and begin again. He struck and struck and struck, but the stone seemed to mock him with its silence. Neighbors would pass by, shaking their heads. "Why waste your strength on something that will never break?" they whispered. The stonecutter heard their words, and though he tried to ignore them, doubt crept in. He wondered if his work meant anything at all. His arms ached, his spirit sagged, and many times he thought of walking away. Yet something deep within held him there. He longed to understand if persistence had meaning, if the countless blows of his hammer, though invisible in effect, were leading him somewhere unseen. Each swing was both an act of labor and a question. Will today be any different? Will this effort matter at all? Thus his days unfolded, ordinary, repetitive, and quietly desperate. He did not yet know that within those repetitive strikes lay the seed of a truth that would change not only his work, but his understanding of life itself. One evening, as the stonecutter sat weary beside the unbroken rock, an old traveler approached. His beard was long, his eyes bright with a calm wisdom, and though he carried no tools, he seemed to understand the weight the younger man bore. The stonecutter sighed. "I have struck this rock so many times, yet it remains the same. Perhaps my labor is foolish. Perhaps persistence is nothing but stubbornness." The old man listened without interruption. Then he picked up the hammer lying on the ground, turned it gently in his hands, and said, "Do you believe the stone will ever split?" The stonecutter hesitated. "Not anymore," he admitted. "I have given it everything, and still it does not move." With a slow smile, the traveler set the hammer back into his calloused hands. "Then here is your task," he said softly. "Keep striking, not because the stone must fall today nor tomorrow, but because each strike carries the weight of the ones before. The world will only see the final blow, but you must remember, it is every blow together that breaks the stone." The stonecutter frowned. The challenge sounded almost cruel in its simplicity. To keep repeating an act that seemed fruitless. Yet something in the traveler's words unsettled him, like a seed planted in dry soil. The old man left without another word, but the echo of his challenge lingered. From that day forward, the stonecutter knew his journey was no longer about breaking a rock, but about discovering what persistence truly meant. The next morning, before the village had stirred, the stonecutter returned to his place by the stubborn rock. The hammer felt heavier than ever, yet the words of the old traveler lingered like an ember in his chest. Each strike carries the weight of the ones before. He lifted the hammer and let it fall. Once, twice, 10 times. The stone did not so much as flinch. Days turned into weeks. His muscles burned, his palms blistered, and still the stone remained whole. Children passed by and laughed. "The madman strikes again!" they jeered. Even friends shook their heads in pity. "Surely you have better things to do," they advised. Their doubt pressed on him like the weight of the mountain itself. Many nights, he laid his hammer down and promised himself he would not return. And yet, at dawn, he always found his feet walking back. Every strike became a conversation with his own weakness. His arms shouted, "Enough!" His mind whispered, "This is pointless." But somewhere deeper, a quieter voice urged, "Keep going." He realized persistence was less about stone and more about self, about standing firm when all evidence told him to quit. One afternoon, as the sun blazed and sweat poured from his brow, he lifted the hammer once more. His swing was no harder than the hundreds before it, yet this time, a crack rang out. A sharp, startling sound. He froze, breath caught in his throat. A thin fracture had appeared across the rock's surface. His heart pounded as if the mountain itself had spoken. In that instant, he understood. It was not this single strike that broke the stone, but every unseen blow that had prepared the way. The stonecutter dropped his hammer and stared at the crack running through the rock. It was a small wound, but to him it looked like the sky had split open. For the first time, he saw proof that his effort had not vanished into nothing. His hands trembled, not from exhaustion, but from awe. As he sat beside the fractured stone, the memory of the old traveler's words returned with clarity. The world will only see the final blow, but it is every blow together that breaks the stone. Suddenly, the meaning unfolded before him. Persistence was never about one dramatic moment of victory. It was about the invisible accumulation of small, faithful acts. Each strike had seemed useless on its own, yet together they carried the power to transform the impossible. He realized this truth reached far beyond the quarry. A student struggling with his lessons may believe the late nights and failed attempts are wasted. But every page read, every equation solved, is another strike against the stone. A runner who trains daily, even when no finish line is in sight, is chiseling away at the invisible wall between weakness and strength. A parent repeating words of love to a child who does not yet understand is building a foundation that one day will stand firm. In life, too, we often crave sudden results, but the deepest changes grow quietly. Success is not born from one heroic act, but from the steady rhythm of showing up again and again, long after others have stopped. The stonecutter understood now. The stone had not resisted him. It had been storing his strength until the moment it could no longer hold. And in that moment of revelation, he smiled, not because the rock had cracked, but because he himself had. His doubt, his impatience, his fear of wasted effort, all of it broke open, and in its place remained a new conviction. Persistence is never wasted. As the sun dipped low and painted the horizon with gold, the stonecutter stood before the fractured rock. The dust of his labor clung to his skin, but his spirit felt lighter than it had in years. For so long he had believed that his efforts vanished into silence. Now he knew every strike had been speaking, carving, preparing, though he could not hear it at the time. He looked at the stone, but what he truly saw was his own reflection. A man who had refused to surrender. A man who had learned that progress is born not in sudden leaps, but in steady steps. The crack in the rock was not just stone giving way. It was life revealing its secret. That every small act matters. Every repetition shapes the future. He walked home slowly, the echo of his hammer still alive in his heart. Around him, the village lights began to flicker, each one a reminder that persistence is like fire. It starts small, but with patience it burns bright enough to guide the night. So, if you feel unseen in your struggle, remember the stonecutter. Your effort is not wasted, even if the world cannot yet see its mark. Each day you choose to keep going, you are closer to the moment when your own stone will finally break. And when it does, you will realize it was not the last act that made the difference, but the courage to never stop. If this story of the stonecutter touched your heart, share it with someone who might need a reminder to keep going. Perhaps a friend facing discouragement, or a loved one who feels their efforts are invisible. Let them know persistence is never wasted. And if you want more stories that speak to the quiet strength within us all, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you never miss an episode. Every story is another strike against doubt, another reminder that even the smallest efforts can shape a brighter tomorrow.